Are you accidentally turning away your best potential customers? I'm talking about people who are ready to buy, but they end up leaving your website because the experience they're having doesn't feel like it's for them. Today, I'm breaking down 8 examples from e-commerce websites that are converting consumers rather than pushing them away, especially for communities most brands overlook. Now, real quick, before we get into those examples, there are 3 core areas that signal to a consumer whether or not a brand, and in this case an e-commerce brand, is for them or not. And as a result of those signals, the consumers that you want to serve will make a decision about whether or not to move forward with your brand. All right, so the first area is all about representation. The people that you want to serve need to see themselves or who they aspire to be reflected in the visual imagery that your brand puts forth. When they see themselves represented in the models that you use, in the testimonials that you are featuring, or even in the imagery of your team, they receive a signal that communicates, people like me belong here. When they don't see themselves represented, the signal that they're receiving is, this brand isn't for me. All right, so the second area is all about customer experience. Delivering experiences that have the least amount of friction as possible for the people that you want to serve, especially those consumers who have identities that are part of underrepresented and underserved communities, will demonstrate to those consumers that you've taken the time to consider them to ensure that they feel like they belong with your brand. All right, and the third area to focus on is identity-based design. One of the most effective ways to eliminate friction in the customer experience that your brand delivers is to design your e-commerce experience with specific identities in mind. By considering the various types of identities that the people that you want to serve hold in your design and development process, it makes it easier for you to incorporate elements that make people who have the identities that you want to make sure feel like they belong with you, feel seen and supported and like they belong with you. All right, so with that foundation in mind, let's dig into these examples of brands who've done a good job of designing for specific communities with their e-commerce websites that has enabled them to convert more of the people who land on their website. All right, so the first examples come from Moo and Farm Rio and how they take a global approach to converting more consumers. Smart marketers know that the people who have the problem that your brand solves don't just live in one country or speak one language. As such, it is important for you to showcase to these consumers as quickly as you possibly can whenever they land on your website that your brand is for them. Business card print house Moo does it by placing an option in the main navigation of its website that enables site visitors to select which country they are in and the associated language they need. Based on that selection, the website automatically changes to that country's local language. Retailer Farm Rio takes a similar approach. Consumers are able to select which country they live in from the main navigation. Once confirmed, pricing and shipping options for the clothing items change to reflect the local currency of where the consumer is shopping from. In this example, the country selected is Morocco and prices are shown in their currency, the dirham. Having to do a price conversion adds unnecessary friction and sends a very strong signal to the person on the receiving end of that this brand isn't for me, and that of course is not what you want. All right, so the second e-commerce website example comes from Dolce & Gabbana and how they're leaning into accessibility. Now, just because someone has a disability doesn't mean that they don't enjoy stylish clothes. It doesn't mean that they don't enjoy cute home decor, and it doesn't mean that they don't want to buy ingredients for some recipes that they want to try out at home. 15% of the world's population has some form of disability. As such, making your website accessible enables you to support a much broader group of people while delivering an experience with less friction. Fashion brand Dolce & Gabbana has embraced accessibility by using a tool that makes it so its website visitors can adjust accessibility settings to suit their needs. All right, so the third example comes from Amazon and how it delivers an effective experience for neurodivergent consumers. Estimates show that between 15 to 20% of the population is neurodivergent, including people with ADHD, autism, dyslexia, dyspraxia, and sensory processing disorder. Amazon is a brand that is making intentional effort to better serve these consumers. Here's a quick excerpt I had with 3 neurodiversity consultants as they shared in which the ways in which Amazon delivers an experience that supports their needs.
Amazon nails it. It doesn't provide you with distracting imagery. It may not give you the nice warm and fuzzies, but in terms of going in, getting out, for example, I bought some shorts this morning from Amazon. I wanted to buy some New Balance ones because I knew New Balance were great. I was in and out of that in 5 minutes.
The online experience really also touches on many different forms of neurodivergence. It could be color and font contrast, so especially for people who are dyslexic, you need to pay a lot of attention to that. Layouts, how easy it is to navigate. My personal pet peeve of pop-up videos. You show me pop-up videos, it literally gives me a jolt that makes me sick.
An important part of the customer experience is return policies, because with online shopping especially, you don't always know exactly what you're getting until it shows up at your door if it's not something you've ever purchased before. Amazon is just so easy with returns, so it's a very natural place for neurodivergent people to shop, because maybe sometimes you need a black shirt but you're not sure which texture you're going to like in person, so maybe you buy 3 black shirts, so you're going to return 2 of those black shirts and keep the 1. So knowing that there is a return policy, and I would say there's just a level of empathy in the whole customer experience in Amazon, which is why I think they've managed to do so well and become the giant that they are.
All right, so the fourth e-commerce website examples that are converting more consumers comes from Calvin Klein and Fenty Skin, as they're welcoming LGBTQ+ consumers. Smart brands demonstrate to the LGBTQ+ community that they are seen, supported, and they belong all year long, rather than just during Pride Month with limited edition products and plastering rainbows everywhere. Retailer Calvin Klein does it by showcasing a broad diversity of masculinity in the models it features on its website. Here's how one gay male consumer explained why that range of representation is important to him.
I definitely see just many different types of guys here, and that makes me feel like it's an everybody brand rather than like an elitist brand. They're showing all types of masculinity, and I know that's not necessarily a gay thing to worry about those things, but that definitely leads me to believe that they're taking different types of men in.
Another way e-commerce brands can show support to the LGBTQ+ community is the ways in which it classifies its products. Fenty Beauty made its skincare line gender neutral, so there was no need to label products for being for men or for women, which can exclude people who are non-binary. The brand is also intentional about prioritizing gender diversity in the models using the products. All right, so the fifth e-commerce example of how smart brands are converting more of the people who land on their websites comes from Cooper's Hawk and how they're embracing dietary restrictions. Many restaurants now have an e-commerce arm to their business, as they're now asking and encouraging more customers to get takeouts via their online ordering platform. Now, as someone with dietary restrictions for health reasons, I've always been a little reluctant to do online orders for food that I'm going to take away, because I've always just been a little nervous that someone who is reading the order isn't going to see any notes that I've written with specific accommodations that I need to ensure that the food is going to be safe for me to eat and not make me sick. The restaurant Cooper's Hawk has addressed this fear. Within the online ordering section, they've created separate products that are labeled gluten-free. Even the name of the product has a GF at the end, so me or anyone else with a gluten-free restriction doesn't have to write anything in and pray that the notes were read. The brand takes a similar approach to vegan items on the vegetarian menu. A person can feel reassured that their food will in fact be vegan because it's labeled on the website as vegan sweet corn and tomato risotto. All right, so the sixth example comes from Savage X Fenty and how they're putting women of all sizes front and center. The average clothing size for women in both the US and the UK is a size 16-18, but too often the models who are featured on e-commerce e-commerce websites who were wearing the clothes and showing what it's going to look like are much smaller sizes. Savage X Fenty takes a different approach to embrace people of all sizes. The brand features a broad range of diversity in the models it uses, including a range of body sizes and types. And when it comes time for consumers to select their size, they don't have to deal with being labeled plus size as other retailers often do. They just select the size that they need from the broad range of sizes offered by the brand. All right, so the 7th example comes from David's Bridal, and we're looking specifically at their approach to race and ethnicity. Now, there are many different identities that consumers have when it comes to race and ethnicity. As such, whenever you're thinking about the people that you are going to feature on your website, whether they're models, your staff, or other stock photography, make sure you're putting a lot of thought into the representation of the different races and ethnicities that are reflective of the consumers that your brand wants to serve. Pro tip, don't opt for trying to use models and imagery of people who are racially ambiguous to try to appeal to the broadest range of consumers. It actually has the opposite effect and frustrates people, often those of darker complexions who often don't see themselves represented at all in media and marketing. Retailer David's Bridal does this on their website by featuring a broad diversity of races and ethnicities with the models who are showcasing all the different dresses and other products that they have. And the last example comes from IKEA and how it's embracing religious traditions with Diwali. Consumers who have the problem that your brand solves will often also have a variety of different religious affiliations, traditions, and celebrations. While it's very common for brands to lean hard into Christian celebrations such as Christmas, more brands are starting to add different holidays to the ones that they celebrate. IKEA has added products for Diwali to see and serve consumers who celebrate it. And consumers who celebrate Diwali appreciate that IKEA has products that are for them. There's plenty of videos on YouTube of people showing their Diwali hauls from IKEA. All right, so with all these examples as inspiration, it's time for you to make your e-commerce website more inclusive so you can convert more of the people who come to your website. There's no downside to doing so. The more people that you're able to send signals that you belong here through your intentional design and user experience choices, the more people you'll be able to convert. Another quick thing for you to note, smart e-commerce brands often couple their website with a really smart email marketing strategy. So if you want some examples of some brands who are implementing some really smart and effective email marketing strategies to convert more customers, check out this video here. Until next time, remember, everyone deserves to have a place where they belong. Let's use our individual and collective power to ensure more people feel like they do. Thanks so much for watching. Talk to you soon.